How many more people do we have outside?
All right. How many people are here for a specific case?
Everybody.
Which case is everybody here for? Okay, I'm sorry. Let me take this back. Now, there are a lot of people here for one or two cases.
Yeah.
You have opposition to a case, for instance? Or
Who's here for the case about the RVs? Anybody here for the case about the RVs? Okay, you are, okay. Anybody here for the case about the garden homes off of Lou George Road? You are, okay. Sir, what are you here for?
Stonehaven, Subdivision.
Okay, anybody else here on the Stonehaven subdivision case? Okay, sir, you in the red shirt, what case are you here on? Do you know? Okay, anybody else here on that case? How many more people are outside? Can y'all give me an idea? A lot of them. You think there's a dozen or 30 or 40? You think?
Maybe a dozen.
Maybe a dozen.
I mean, they.
Yeah, why don't we do this? If y'all could just come on in, and ideally everybody would be in here, but I want to be safe. So if y'all can come on in, let me see if we got seats for people. But if we're really crowded, then we may ask some people to go out into the hall until we call the case, okay? Sorry, that's just the times we live in, so.
I'll wait outside. Mine's 94 and it's recommended for approval. I'll just wait.
Sure, and let's do that, y'all. If you are uncomfortable because you feel like you're close to all other people, feel free to step outside and wait. When we call your case, we'll make sure somebody walks outside and calls it for you, because I know we kind of got over the hump and all this stuff kind of flared back up again. So
I think he's good. That's it.
yeah, if that's it, we're okay. But again, if anybody wants to walk out in the hall, please don't feel embarrassed to do that. We will. If anybody walks out in the hall, we will call case out in the hall after we call it in here. Okay. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get going. I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 9th, 2021 public hearing of the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning Commission is charged with regulating, the Planning Commission is charged with regulating the subdivision of property in the unincorporated areas of Jefferson County. You will be given the decision of the Commission today regarding subdivision request, and the plat representative will receive the decision in writing within 10 business days. Please note that any subdivision approved today is not complete. In order to complete the subdivision of your property, a final plat must be recorded in the office of the Judge of Probate. County staff will be coordinating with the surveyors of today's approved preliminary plats to prepare the approved plats for recording. The Planning Commission is also charged with evaluating requests for rezoning of property and advising the County Commission for their final determination. All decisions made by the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding zoning cases are advisory only, and the final determination of the zoning will be made by the Jefferson County Commission in a subsequent public hearing for which all property owners within 500 feet will be notified. If everyone would please be sure to silence your electronic devices so they don't go off during our meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Here. Brian Devereaux.
Here.
Martin Evans.
Here.
Steve Forsythe. Here. Neil King.
Here.
Ken Lowry.
Here.
Evan Martin Sigler.
Here.
Trudy Strang.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have four.
All right, thank you. Our first item are the minutes from the last two meetings. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion and a correction. So part of the motion is to suspend the reading of the minutes and approve as written for the October 14th meeting, and for the November meeting to correct the previous minutes discussion. Instead of reading adoption of the November minutes were carried over, it should read the October minutes were carried over.
All right, I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, now we'll move on into our subdivision cases. Our procedure for subdivision cases will be that the staff will first give their report, and then we will call for anyone here in opposition to come forward. If anybody who comes to speak today, if you would please remember to state your name and address for the record. After the opposition comes forward, then we will call for the owner or their representative to come forward and address any of the questions or concerns that have been raised by the opposition or by the commission. Our first subdivision case is S21-75. This is Greg Lee's request for a 4-lot subdivision of approximately 8.1 acres in the Mulga area. Ms. Hughes, if you would please present your report.
The purpose of this subdivision is to split 3 acre tracts into 4 lots of record for residential use. The property here is on A1. Each lot meets the minimum requirements of 1 acre. Lots 1, 2, and 3.
Ms. Hughes, can you try to see if you can talk in that microphone? I can hear you okay,
Yes,
but I
sir.
think some of the people behind may not be able to. If you can get to it.
This is a 4-lot subdivision in A1 zoning. Each lot is meeting the minimum requirements of 1 acre. Lots 1, 2, and 3 have easement, a 50-foot easement to Old Port Road, Old Port Drive, and they're recommending a turnaround or a cul-de-sac right here for emergency vehicles. Lot 4 has road frontage. Staff is recommending approval with the exception of the subdivision regulations to allow lots 1, 2, and 3 to be recorded without road frontage.
Great job. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? All right. Is the applicant here? Are you in opposition? Okay. Or you just have questions, sir? Okay. Great. All right. We're going to open up the public hearing then. If y'all come forward, state your name and address for the record and let us know what questions you have.
Yes, my name is Brian Rocket. We live at 1300 Old Port Drive, just across the street. Our question was, is this for site-built homes, or would this be for or multiple manufactured homes?
Mr. Rocket, I'll ask the applicant if they're here to answer that question, and we'll see what they have to say. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? All right, is the applicant here? Okay. Sir, if you would come forward and state your name and address for the record, and if you could answer Mr. Rocket's question, please.
Hi there, my name is Greg Lee, 3867 Rock Ridge Road, Arndale, Alabama. That's going to be, we're going to do at least 2 site-built homes and hopefully 3, depending on what water we can get on the property. So, not
Okay.
mobile homes.
All right, great. And I will, though, say there was some discussion in our pre-meeting. This property is zoned agricultural, and we're just carving up the lots here. We're not. This case is not about the actual use of whether you can do stick-built or not. I'm glad I hope that's the response you wanted, Mr. Rocket. But just so you know, in A1 zoning already, you can put a mobile home on A1. Sounds like okay, great. Just to clarify, I didn't want you walking out here thinking otherwise. So, all right, thank you very much.
Before you take off.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions from the commission. Go ahead, Mr. Lauer.
Thank you. Sorry for the start and go. So, based on your mention, I've got the aerial map in front of me besides this one. There are existing structures on some of the lots that you're dividing up. Are those going to remain?
There's an existing lot, structure on lot number 3. There were 2 other mobile homes on there, but one of them burned down and one of them we tore down because it was in bad shape. The one that's existing on lot 3 is going to remain. He's going to purchase that property and leave the mobile home there, or maybe do a new mobile home at some point. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but he's going to leave his house there for now.
So the planned building are on lots 1, 2, and 3, is that correct?
Definitely 1 and 2, and possibly 3 if we can get, like I said, if we can get another water meter in there.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions from the commission for the applicant or for staff? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval on case S210075 with the exception to the subdivision regulations to allow lots 1, 2, and 3 to be recorded without road frontage.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. All right, next case is S21-89. Mavis Cagle and Eva Lacey and Elva Lane's request for a 5-lot subdivision of 10.46 acres in the Oak Grove area. Mr. Morrison, you going to handle this one?
Yes, sir. Again, this request is to subdivide 10.46 acres into 5 lots of record. Each will contain the minimum 1 acre and meets all zoning standards. The properties will be serviced by septic septic tanks as it's not within the sewer service area. And if you'll notice, this tract straddles both sides of Sunview Drive. By approving this subdivision plat, it will effectively separate that tract so that we've got two new lots of record on the opposite side of the road. To our knowledge, there hasn't been any opposition received on this particular request, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? All right, is the applicant here? All right, thank you. Ma'am, you don't, we'll open the public hearing, but don't feel like you need to come up and mention anything unless you want to. All right, are there any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval on case number S210089.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Next case is S21-90, Peggy and Fred Posey and Lorraine and Thomas Bowman's request for a two-lot subdivision of 1.79 acres in the Mount Olive area. Mr. Morrison, if you would please present the case.
Yes, sir. This is containing, this request is concerning an existing subdivision where there are two lots of record. If you'll notice where I'm circling up here on the laser is the current lot line in between the two. They're proposing just to move that lot line, which of course triggers a resurvey and re-subdivision of these two lots of record. The proposed lots meet all zoning requirements. Again, they'll be serviced by a septic tank, one of which is already in place. The other lot is not built on. This lot 4A already has a residence on it. The plan here is to construct another residence here on lot 3A. Again, it's R1 zoning, so it would only allow for stick-built housing. And again, staff recommended approval of this request as well.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We'll now open the public hearing and ask if anyone is here in opposition. All right, is the applicant here? All right. Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant or for their representative? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval on case S210090.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Next case is S21-91, Shelby Belcher's request for a 4-lot subdivision and an additional conservation lot of 257 acres in the Adger area. Mr. Morrison, if you would please present the case to us.
Yes, sir. Again, this is a request to subdivide 257 acres into 4 lots with one conservation area or conservation lot that sort of makes up the center of it right here. This area is very rural and has a very substandard road network. In this particular instance, right-of-way dedication will be required along Sumter Weller Road and East Uptake Road where it's adjacent to the property. There will be, lot 1 will be recorded with no subdivision, with no road frontage if approved. The rest do have road frontage. It's just, again, on that very rural network out in the Adger area. Again, in this particular instance, staff recommended approval with an exception to the subdivision regulations to allow lot 1 to be recorded with no road frontage.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We'll now open the public hearing and ask if anyone is here in opposition to this case. All right, is the applicant here? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval of case S210091 with an exception to the subdivision regulations to allow lot 1 to be recorded with no road frontage.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, great. And folks, I don't know if I mentioned this. If your case is over with and you don't have another one, feel free to walk out. I would encourage you to do that. Don't feel like you're being rude by waiting or by walking out. All right, our next case is S21-92, Cecilia and Charles Armstrong's request for a 3-lot subdivision of 40 acres in the McCalla area. Mr. Morrison, if you would please present the case.
Yes, sir. Again, this is a 40-acre tract out in the McCall area. They're proposing to subdivide into 3 lots. 2 lots will have over 17 acres, and the remaining lot will have 5 acres. Although I haven't confirmed this, we had to pick up these cases earlier this week. It appears that the lot 2 with 5 acres is perhaps subdivided for mortgage purposes. I know a lot of times that mortgages require that you don't have more than 5 acres. in order to obtain a mortgage on there. I believe all this too is for family purposes. Again, this doesn't have any, lots 1, 2, and 3 did not have any road frontage, but they are accessed by easement, which you see on the eastern section of the property. The lots themselves will be served by septic tanks, and each is zoned A1, and the minimum lot size, of course, is 1 acre, of which this far exceeds those minimum requirements. With all that in light, staff recommended approval with an exception to the subdivision regulations to allow lots 1, 2, and 3 to be recorded with no road frontage.
All right, thank you. We'll now open the public hearing and call for anyone here in opposition to please come forward. All right, seeing none, is the applicant here? Okay, great. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion for approval with an exception to the subdivision regulations on lots 1, 2, and 3 record with no road frontage on case S210092.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Subdivision case 21-93 will be heard with zoning case 21-41. So we will move on to subdivision case 21-94. Florence Standridge's request for a 4-lot subdivision of 160 acres in the corner area. Mr. Morrison, if you would, please present the case.
Yes, sir. Again, this request is to subdivide a 160-acre tract out on the Warrior area into 3 lots, 2 of which will lot 3 will contain 40 acres, lot 4 will contain 79 acres, and this lot 3, where there is some existing structures, will contain 3.36 acres. Again, this property is zoned A1 agriculture, so each lot will meet minimum zoning minimum zoning standards for lot size. Each lot will have road frontage. With that being said, staff recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We'll now open the public hearing and call for anyone here in opposition to please come forward. All right. Seeing none, is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Okay, great, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I can motion for approval on case S210094.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, let's have it. Thank you all. Our next case is S21-95. Linda Sparks, Robert Woodrow Blythe, and Jeremy Blythe's request for a 3-lot subdivision of 42 acres in the Trussville area. Mr. Morrison, if you would please present the case.
All right. Yes, so this request is to subdivide 42 acres into 3 lots, each of which will have road frontage. It's an A1 zoning. Each lot will comply with minimum lot standards that are required in A1. This particular area is also not serviced by sanitary sewer and would require septic tank septic tank approval from the Jefferson County Department of Health. As these lots meet minimum standards as far as lot size and road frontage, staff has recommended approval of this request.
All right. Mr. Morrison, I noticed that I think in the materials.
Yes, sir. I think that
I don't see
this has been omitted from the packets.
Okay.
If you'd like to carry this over, we could get that case material to you.
Could we
Or we could
move it to the end of the agenda and give time for us to get the materials?
Yes.
Yeah, if that's possible, that would be preferred, I think, so we could go ahead and hear the case today. But I think it would be nice to put our eyes on the plat map itself, if we could. Oh. Sir, are you in a hurry by chance? If you have time, I know there's. Hopefully, we'll be wrapped up in about an hour. Let's do that, folks. We're going to move S21-95 to the end of the agenda, and Michael, as soon as we're able to hear that case, if y'all will speak up and let me know, we'll stop.
Sure thing.
We'll finish up whatever case we're working on then, and we'll move back to that one.
We apologize for that.
No problem. I understand. I don't think that's ever happened. So, all right. We'll now move to Yeah, S21-96, this is RW Development LLC's request for a four-lot subdivision, approximately 11.5 acres in the Hoover area. If you would, please present the case.
Yes, sir. Again, this property is zoned A1. It is located on the banks of the Cahaba, and is currently located on the edge of a stub street that was platted with the Stonehaven subdivision. There's one lot that will have frontage here. The other lots will be accessed via an easement that is carved out of the fronts of proposed lots 2 and 3. The majority of lot 4 is covered by either floodplain, floodway, or area within the 500-year floodplain, and thus construction on this particular lot will be very limited and monitored and would require a floodplain development permit. And if located within the 100-year floodplain, it would have to meet certain developmental standards that are required of the county. Again, the other 3 lots, lots 2 and 1 have no floodplain. Lots 3 does have a little bit of floodplain extending from the northern edge of the property. The lots themselves conform to standards in A1 zoning. I would like to also point out that on lot 4 there is a conservation easement that includes all of the floodway on the property along the Cahaba, which would restrict any sort of development or anything there, although the floodplain management ordinance pretty well restricts any sort of development within the floodplain without meeting some sort of environmental or engineering standard that would be approved by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The lots as proposed do meet the minimum standards as required in the zoning regulations. And for this instance, staff did recommend approval with an exception to the subdivision regulations, again, to allow lots 1, 2, and 4 to be recorded without road frontage, but they would be accessed by a recorded and platted easement.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Good job. We'll now open the public hearing and call for anyone here in opposition. Please come forward. Yes, sir. If you would, remember to please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Childers. I live at 2724 Stonehaven Place, which is directly next door to this development. And I have many concerns with this development. This plat doesn't actually show any of the contours that are on the property, and the where the access is to Stonehaven Place and where these 4 common driveways will be coming together is actually about a 30% grade up a hill. And to have 4 lots and 4 driveways come together on such a steep grade doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I know it's the only place to access the property, but the driveways from that point down toward lot 1 are also at a 30% grade, and up to lot 4 is almost a 50% grade. So this plat really doesn't tell the story of what would have to happen for these lots to be developed. And like I said, I live right there, and to have those cars coming out of this lot's on a extremely steep driveway into a cul-de-sac that right now only has 3 houses on it, seems like a dangerous situation to me. And I'm not 100% sure what Jefferson County's regulation on driveway grades are, but most are around 15%. If you put a 15% driveway up that hill, you're going to be cutting into the top of that ridge about 15 feet. And I can tell you by letting you look at the outcroppings in my yard that cutting 15 feet in that property is going to be pretty difficult. The other major concern is fire protection. Our house is in the same sort of situation. We are adjacent to Hoover, but we are not within the Hoover city limits. So when we purchased our house this May, we did not have fire service. I believe like in the Realtor.com and stuff like that, it said that we would be covered by Rocky Ridge Fire Station, which is across the river. We called, they would not cross the river to come for fire protection. We also called North Shelby, which is down by Veterans Park. They said we were out of their jurisdiction. And the fire chief at North Shelby said our only option was to contract independently with Hoover. So we did that. So we do have fire service with Hoover. The main reason that this property has not been annexed into Hoover is because this development would not meet the requirements of the city of Hoover. The fire department grades on the driveways, turnarounds that they were requesting. So my main question about that is, who's going to offer fire protection? If it's Hoover, then I imagine that this will have to meet all of those requirements that Hoover had told the developer before, which isn't going to be 30% driveways. They won't be able to get fire trucks in and out. They'll make them have turnarounds and wider driveways and grades that fire trucks can access the property. And so I'd like to know who is going to be offering fire protection, because we were in the exact same situation and had to contract with Hoover. The third question I have is, in some of the emails that I was copied on with the developer, they said they were talking with Jefferson County Environmental Services Health Department about on-site sewer. There is public sewer in that cul-de-sac. There's a pump station. So these lots should not be allowed to have on-site septic systems. They should be required to connect to the public sewer there. And there are other issues with what kind of homes they're developing. The lots around there are R1, but most of the lots around this cul-de-sac are much larger than the R1 zoning. The frontages and the houses are much larger than what the zoning calls for. If we leave this A1 and divide this into these lots, there is no control over what size house they could put there, which would be totally inconsistent with the zoning of every house around there. So we're very concerned about that. Each of the houses around here are very large, stately houses. And the type of houses that they say they're going to put on there are completely out of character for this neighborhood. Those are the concerns that we have, and I think it's premature to be allowing it to be subdivided until all of these questions are answered. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childers. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? Yes, sir. If you would, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sandy Six. I live at 2715 Stonehaven Place, which is directly across the street from the proposed redivision of the lot. I have basically the same concerns that Joey has, just basically a negative impact to our whole area. I'm really concerned that if they do develop these lots as designed, that they will have to move a lot of earth and change the character of everything there on that side of the street in a negative way, negatively affecting our property values. But other than that, pretty much the same things Mr. Childers said.
Thank you. And I appreciate you being brief and just letting us know that you have the same concerns as Mr. Childers did, because, folks, if everybody else in here, don't feel like you need to repeat things just for everybody's time. You know, I'm making a list of concerns that I want to follow up on, and so no need to repeat it. We hear you that you got the same concerns as Mr. Childers does. So thank you, Mr. Six. All right. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? Yes, sir.
My name is Frank O'Neill. I live at 2704 Stonehaven Place, which would be 2 lots up toward the bottom of the screen there. Same concerns about the effect in the neighborhood, but I have a number of questions.
Okay.
Right now, there is probably from about where you see the word Lot 1, Lot 2, I'm not sure, but working down across there is a ditch that's about 35 feet deep. I don't know, could be 25, but there's drainage there. So how are we going to affect that? So that's partly part of the topography. This area is heavily wooded, and if the amount of dirt or earth that's got to be moved is cut down, I'd like to know what kind of barriers we're going to have, or something that provides some sort of screen without destroying the character of the land in the neighborhood as it stands. Other questions beyond fire protection. What about law enforcement? Are people in those lots going to have to wait for Jefferson County sheriffs to come around over the river? What about garbage and refuse? Are the garbage trucks that Jefferson County sends around going to come there because this is not going to be in Hoover? What about school zoning? Will these houses be zoned to the Jefferson County school system, or is there some arrangement for them to be local? The reason I ask that is that's another set of school buses. Stonehaven, or Inverness Point where this is one of the few places where the beats and bounds extend south of the Cahaba River. We already have school buses from Shelby County into the front of the neighborhood. Hoover's in there. So it's just another set of school buses and congestion early in the morning. So I have safety concerns about that. And also just the construction traffic and the length of time it's going to take to build these. This is a short street. The people from Riverbrook already come out of there, run that stop sign, speed up the street. We have young children on that street, so I'm concerned about just the impact of traffic, not necessarily from the four houses after completion, but during completion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? All right, seeing none, the applicant would please come forward and add anything to the staff's presentation, and also please do your best to address some of the concerns and questions that the opposition has, please.
Excellent. Thank you. I didn't have a pen with me. I noticed you, Chairman Evans, taking some notes. So if I miss any of their questions, please don't let me leave before I address them.
Sure.
I'll start in reverse order because that's easiest for me to remember.
Sure.
The school buses, I do not think these homes would...
Hey, sorry, if you would...
I'm so sorry.
Yes, all right.
I'm John Mark Reeves with RW Development. I'm representing this split of the subdivision of 2722 Stonehaven Place. My address is 2021 Shades Crest Road, and that's 35216. Excellent.
Sorry to break your stride. Go ahead. You're talking
That's
about
all
school
right.
buses.
So, actually, I can follow back up on that, and hopefully I'll be able to remember it. But to start, we've been in touch with Andrew Martin, the city planner or the county planner, and has done an excellent job making sure that we subdivide these in a way that meet the regulations. We've also been in touch with Hoover and making sure that we create these lots in a manner which they could easily be annexed in the future. Our hope would to be annex them into the future. And we've talked to the city planner, Mac Martin, and he has been supportive of it. However, he said it actually would make sense to subdivide these first. There is one lot that we could not get frontage to. That's lot 4, all the way at the north. And a hard and fast rule for Hoover is that it has to have frontage in order to annex it in. They don't have the leniency that Jefferson County has in the regulations. So we would hope to be able to annex these homes into Hoover. After the fact, if it can get annexed in, it seems very feasible, but of course that would go before Hoover, and we'd see that case in the future.
Mr. Reeves, I don't mean to just break your stride, but just stop it real quick. So you have to have frontage on a public road. They won't allow lots to be accessed by a private easement.
That's correct.
Private road.
That's correct. At creation. At creation.
Okay.
So,
all right.
If something was accessed via easement, it could annex in. So the second concern, which I think is a very legitimate concern, is fire protection. And we have been in touch with Chief Thornton in Hoover. He has given us some guidelines that we would need to follow in order to have their fire trucks turn in. There is a fee that you pay, an annual fee that you pay to have Hoover service these homes, and we've been in touch with them. The regulations basically state that a 40-foot fire truck has to turn in there, so certain curvatures in order to allow a 40-foot truck. Again, under 15% grade is another one of the requirements which we'll be able to easily be able to meet with what we've walked through with our grading and civil engineer. So we would have a fire in this driveway that would come down and have a wide turnaround so we could have access by the Hoover Fire Department.
Talk about the grading of the property and the driveway.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've met on site with a civil engineer, and we have the topo of the site. We've been able to work through the topo and got on paper how it worked. And then, of course, we followed up with our grading contractor, the gentleman who'd be doing the work, went out, did some measurements, did some tests, and have gone over the grading with him. Right now, we're targeting 12% driveways. Some, it will be up to 15% in some of the steepest areas. But and to be quite honest, the gentleman who expressed that concern, his driveway would actually be a very similar, just from looking at it visually, would be a very similar grade coming up there because, like so many of these homes, it is in an area of a ridge, so you have some steep driveways that come up off the ridge. I know it might not look like that and what's there right now, but the way that we'll be able to move the dirt in order to take from the mountain, fill back up in the valley, as you remember one of the gentlemen said, there's a valley and then there's a ridge, and we'd kind of balance those two. We'd fill in the valley, so we're able to start grading, climbing from the beginning, and then cut through the ridge and be able to come up over the home. And one of the reasons that we pursued this 4-lot subdivision so we could do a private driveway, there's so much more leniency with a private driveway, with the curvatures, and instead of having to hold to the standards of public right-of-way, we actually had a meeting with some of these familiar faces at the very beginning of the process, and we actually had a different plan that extending the public right-of-way and creating more lots. And the feedback we got from the HOA was, hey, we aren't comfortable with this. This is too many lots. A lot of the similar concerns, and we took that to heart. We listened to it. We said, hey, I think at that time, I'd said 10 to 11 homes is what we were looking. And we had already had a meeting with Hoover about annexing it in and doing 10 to 11 homes, and they were actually on board with it. But at the meeting, we got a lot of concern from the neighbors. So we took that to heart. We scaled it back. We got our engineer to change it. We're actually, going with a very different route. Another one of the benefits of the public or the private driveway is it can be more narrow than the public right-of-way, so limiting the disturbance that we have to do. We have planned to do retaining walls along the driveway, so even further limiting how much, when we're kind of grading in the driveway, how much cutback we have to do by doing a lot of retaining walls. So we took a lot of those concerns to heart.
Let me ask a question to staff real quick while we're on the topic. Do we regulate in any way driveway grades? I'm not talking about private drive. I'm talking about the actual driveway from the private road, or we do regulate the grades of driveways?
So yes, there's minimum requirements that are applied to those, and it comes back to engineering criteria to provide safe ingress and egress. So, simply saying that a private drive is exempt from those geometric concerns is not correct.
Okay. Now I'm not talking about the private road. I'm talking about the driveway on the house.
It's when you have multiple drives connecting onto a common ingress and egress. That's really what it is it's a common connection. But even driveways have minimum geometric standards. Yes.
So the front, and what I'm talking about is on lots 2 and 3 here, there's a rectangle that's vertical rectangle here. That's what I understand the private. That's going to be the easement area. There's going to be constructed in there a common area for all property owners to use to access their property. But once they leave that little rectangle, do we regulate the driveway that serves each house from that point?
There are minimum standards for driveways.
Okay. Yes. And how does a 12% grade line up with those minimum standards? Okay. All right. Is that something that we look at administratively, or?
Well, I think it would probably fall under a review with the proposed site grading plan. There was, when you start mentioning walls and filling up drainages and driveways, it gets a lot more complex.
Okay. All right. I wanted to know if that was something that was an issue, or if it was something that was already built into something for us to consider, or something that would be built into our regulations and considered administratively. So
it's difficult to answer that question without an idea of what the proposed impact here is, because it's a function of the proposed site location for the house, how that ties in, what what geometrically that means across the property, and then what potential impact that has to the drainage. And so you can change a lot of things that, some of which may be explicitly covered under a regulation, and some of which may be a function of something proposed on the site.
I see. I think I'm glad you explained that, and I did, because I couldn't have done it that well. All right. Thank you, Heather. All right, Mr. Reeves, talking about the driveway, there was some concern from Mr. Childers about traffic. You've got 4 houses proposed. Any idea about the impact on the road by these houses, by traffic pulling out and that sort of thing?
The only thing I have is just a visual, and I apologize, I don't have this in a digital format, but this is our, and I'll show this to the whole crowd in a second. These are our 4 lots to the same scale as the existing. The existing Inverness Point neighborhood. So you can see our 4 lots in a similar box of what looks like the existing Inverness Point neighborhood. So you can just tell the density of ours would just be so much smaller than on average a 3-acre average lot size, a lot smaller than the Inverness Point density right now. There would be 4 more homes. I would feel confident that there wouldn't be any school buses that would come to access the area. And a little bit of feedback we've gotten from real estate agents, we do feel like this would be somebody who would pursue, if it does not get annexed into Hoover, a private school system, because there are some very close by private schools in that area. And to that point, I mentioned on the home construction, I'm not sure which information got relayed, because we were not able to email all the neighbors. We certainly didn't want to. We did have conversations with the HOA president, a gentleman named Rob Fish of Inverness Point, and as well as the HOA president of Mike Mungenass of Riverbrook, both of the neighboring ones. We had extensive conversation with them. We shared our floor plans of another development that we're doing. Those homes are in the 34 to 46 thousand, so 3,400 to 4,600 square feet. So larger floor plans by one of the state's top architects, a gentleman named David Smeltzer. Just very beautiful, and I know that's a biased opinion, but I just feel like those homes on these large lots would bring a very high comparable price home sale. If somebody's concerned, if we were typing built homes that were smaller homes, we certainly wouldn't go to the effort to do this. And this is a beautiful site along the Cahaba River. It's our plan, and I should have started with this. Our plan is to keep it as natural as possible. Our homes will not have big front yards. They won't have very limited clearing except for where necessary to get the driveway into the homes and then around the home footprint. We try to maintain as much of the existing nature and trees as possible. We're aware with it being in the Cahaba River Basin, we know that ADEM will require enhanced soil protection measures. We are planning for all of that, double rows of silt fence and everything. We've talked with both Jefferson County and Hoover about the stormwater management. We have plans for bioswales and way to retain water, to clear it, to clean it before it gets released into the basin. So all of those concerns, we have our civil engineer, and I'll apologize on his behalf. He would love to be here and sitting here and help be able to speak to some of those matters. They had a company-wide retreat. He said he's sitting by his phone, so if there's anything technical that we needed to ask our civil engineers about the grades. And Ms. Carter, I apologize if I misspoke about the driveways. I did want to make clear, all 4 homes will access off of one driveway. We were not planning for 4 driveways to come in, but they would have that shared driveway as it comes off.
Yeah, Mr. Reeves, let me ask that rectangular box that I'm talking about, there's a note that is the 60-foot by 210-foot ingress, egress, and utility easement. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, as far as elevation, where that will be in relation to the cul-de-sac next to it? Is it going to be, will it be lower, will it be higher, and it will, on grade?
Yeah, part of that box is lower and parts higher, okay. and actually kind of where it necks in is about the even level. So as you can imagine, when they're extending Stonehaven Place, they kind of even that area out, and so right where it comes in, it's even. As you go to the left, it kind of goes down and up to the right.
So when cars are entering the cul-de-sac, it's not blind.
That's
coming up.
Yeah, and that's Of course, like we said, we're gonna contour it where a 40-foot fire truck can pull in. So as you can imagine, anything where a 40-foot fire truck can pull in, our curvatures will be such that it would allow for access for that fire truck. So one of those being right at the entrance of the road, there is a flat spot that we maintain a very low grade when you enter in the road, and so you can stop and see traffic coming in.
And how will you dispose of, will there be sewer, will there be septic tank?
That is something that we would work through. So it's a 4-lot subdivision, so it's a meets and bounds subdivision. I've talked to Mr. Debro briefly about this project. We would hope to do septic tanks on site since we have between 1.5 and 6 acres. If it were not possible to do septic tanks, we do have a sewer line there, as was mentioned in the cul-de-sac. But with the size of the lots, we feel like septic tank would be preferred, and that is a Hoover, sewer, and pump station. So I don't know if it is a county, so it would be working with them to get, I don't know if there is a Jefferson County option.
Is there a regulation that you have to tie into sewer if you're subdividing the county? Within so many feet of existing sewer?
Within so many feet, but they can also be granted a waiver of that. I will note that our feedback from environmental services was that the property is not adjacent to counties.
Okay. There may be a lift station there, or it may not be the county. It may not be the county's lift station.
It's not county. That's correct.
This area has sewer that I believe either around is it the Waterworks Board or is it Southwest that runs there?
Yeah, Southwest Water. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's not county accessible sewer.
Garbage law.
Yeah, I've got garbage and law enforcement are two other topics. Just providing your standard services that.
Yeah. So
you
again,
can speak on those, please.
The hope would be to annex some of these into Hoover. At least 2 that have the frontage. I'm sorry, at least 3 that have the frontage, and there's one that has a 50-foot of frontage, which I think Hoover would be okay with. The one on lot 4. At this point, we've not thought through how we'd handle the trash for lot 4, so I couldn't give clarity to that. My civil engineer, if he was here, probably knows the default answer. Unfortunately, I have not heard that information from him.
Okay. All right, and so construction traffic, can you tell me about how long will it take you to develop the site? How long will it take you to build the houses? Just kind of what's your time frame on that?
So, like has been mentioned, there's a ridge that runs through the property. One of the homes would sit up on the ridge, well off the road. The other 3 homes actually sit on the back side of the ridge. So after we get our shared driveway in, all of our construction traffic would really be more out of sight. It would almost be either up on the ridge or majority of it, 75% of it, down the other side of the ridge. So it would be very limited visibility from the road. As people pull off, of course, the first thing we would do would be to extend our kind of shared access driveway. We plan to get that in so that in construction we can have our architect come in there, pull in there, see the site, see the way the river flows, and be able to kind of custom design some of these beautiful homes that would sit down in the river. I cannot give a firm timetable at this point, but it's not something we're looking to rush. We don't want to just rush in there and build these super fast. And we want them to be very nice. We want to be very deliberate through the process to make sure we get it done right.
Are you going to build the homes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very likely to build the homes. There is a chance if the right person came along, and we could do a custom home for them. If it were a very unique circumstance, we consider selling them the land and letting them have their own developer. But our hope would be to be able to build the homes.
All right. I think the big last remaining item, and something that I think that Roads and Transportation had some concerns about too, was excavation, drainage, and I'm glad to hear that you've already done some preliminary engineering, but can you speak through some of that? Because we do, Mr. Childers mentioned that this plat map doesn't show the topography, but we do have in our packet, a topo, and that's superimposed over the aerial imagery, and there is some topography here. So if you could just talk through kind of what your plans are to prevent erosion and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So with having in particular the northern lot, the 6 acres, that is just such a large area. There's already kind of a natural low swell, and I don't know if it happens to show on your topo, but that would be the area we try to collect water, so all the water that runs from the shared driveway, the 3 homes, we try to collect, treat. We've worked with some of the top engineers at floodplain management and water management. In this particular instance, it's actually best not to retain water, to hold water back, because when the area floods, it's actually when the sun's shining after the storm. So you want to filter the water, you want to have the water go in, filter through a media, get back into the ground, and then get into the basin, get into the river, flow downstream while it's pouring, and then after, it's really stopped raining is when everybody else does that, and it comes in, it could potentially flood our site. So it's actually more of a treating of the stormwater instead of the retention. And there's hydrology engineering that needs to be done to that, but we've had the preliminary discussions on how to handle that.
How have you done any hydrological studies or anything to that effect?
We've met Spectrum Engineering, which is an environmental engineer. They're based here in Birmingham. They're a very good engineer. We met them on site and looked through that. We'd like to kind of get through meetings like this before we start finishing the hydrology engineering.
I see. Okay. All right. I kind of hogged the time, and I know that we typically don't spend this much time on a case like this, but I know it warrants a lot of things. Mr. Childers, if you want to come back up, I'll let you come back up and ask one more question if you got it, a follow-up question, but we're going to limit it to you because typically we don't allow multiple rounds of questions, but come on up. I know.
I really just wanted to come back. My name's Joel Childers.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to come back and refute a couple of things that he did say. From the cul-de-sac, you see there's a 50-foot right-of-way that was stubbed toward that street, and that's where the common driveway will have to come out on the cul-de-sac. There's 22 feet, according to Jefferson County's contour map, of elevation difference along that center line up the hill. So from the edge of the cul-de-sac to the center of that rectangular box that you were talking about where the driveways come together,
yes,
it's 22 feet higher than the cul-de-sac. It's not level. The second thing is, like I said before, my house is in Jefferson County, and we are tied to this pump station. So these houses can tie to that pump station because we've already set that precedent.
Are you on sewer or are you on septic?
We're on sewer, tied to that pump station.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Reeves, if you would, can you clarify? I think what you said was that it would really be the rectangular box at the center of it, the access to the cul-de-sac would really be on grade. Would there be some cutting done in the right of way?
I apologize if I didn't answer that correctly. So in the longer rectangle, this area is lower, right through here. This is the valley that they're referring to. One of the gentlemen said 25 to 35 feet.
Okay.
And this area is higher.
Okay.
And the midpoint is kind of in here. Where our driveways would come in, we would come to the south as much as possible to try to get closer to that midpoint so we can kind of swing out and swing up. And we'd start off having the road kind of come 90 degrees off the road. We'd kind of get into the hillside, and then we'd be able to swing up.
Yeah.
And then we'd traverse back across and swing back. There would be some traversing that would happen in order to keep our grades down. The longer the road is, the lower grade we can have as we climb back. And one point that I wanted to make to that is, we've spent a substantial amount of time on this, and this is not something we'd pursue if we knew that we would not be able to get the driveways in. I mean, there's beauty in this land being along the river, and it is a little bit of a challenge to get to it, but we've met contractors out there, met engineers out there. We've gone through it several different ways that it is worth pursuing. It is such a beautiful tract of land. We wouldn't be doing this if it were not possible to get the driveway back to the road.
So, Ms. Carter mentioned it earlier. I take it if we regulate or the grade of the actual driveway, we also, Roads and Transportation would review the connection to the cul-de-sac itself to make sure it was a safe grade. Is that right, Heather?
Yeah, so there's a couple elements of that. When you're talking about a common area that would be for little more complicated when you start adding walls to road sections. And I guess that's a little bit of my concern is looking at the topography of this particular site. It would seem that some of the areas that would potentially be developable on those that are impacted by the floodplain are traversing things that are going to need substantial improvement in order to remain continuously accessible and usable. If you're going
saying
down into the floodplain and then back up onto a high spot, you still have to engineer and protect your infrastructure to be able to handle that. And
we wouldn't have to come back up. Once you traverse the ridge, there's not a coming back.
Well, but you've got a high spot. I'm looking at the topo map right here.
And that's a rise of about 3 feet over the little neck that you can see.
Well, the net effect, though, from an engineering perspective, is you start filling across things that are currently acting as natural drainage. So now you have concentration of flow into areas that are being improved that has to be handled in addition to the development. Your site drainage is particularly difficult. And it's very difficult to understand further without having a very clear idea of exactly where those driveways are coming in, what those pad elevations are being proposed as, and especially with the grades being on the upper end of really what's recommended, those things converge together, and it could be that, have to have a significant amount of upgrade in order to satisfy all the requirements. But it's hard to say. I don't even know. I'm just guessing from looking here at floodplain and things where you might be planning on siting a house. So some of those things it's kind of difficult to make a determination.
I mean, is that analysis done in a preliminary drainage analysis, or is it something more than that?
Well, I would think that they have an idea. If they have an idea of what their driveway grades are, they have to sort of know how far they're going and where they're planning on putting their houses. Right?
Sure. To answer your question, of course, when we walk the site, and it's best done by walking the site, you can identify great little rises. Like I know what you're saying about how it goes back up, and I'm not sure. It looks like those are maybe 5-foot contours, but it is very flat down in that low area. And that little rise that's outside the floodplain would be one of the home locations. There's another little knoll that rises up more, and we'd kind of tuck one on one side of that knoll, another on the other side of the knoll, so down in the low spot. So we did try to think through where our homes would be, and we thus lotted around the best home sites, the one that made the most logical sense. And our shared driveway that comes through does not ever get down into the floodplain. It tightens up. That net tightens up a little bit, and actually in an old floodplain, which they updated in September, the driveway was completely out of the floodplain. They actually updated it, and now it necks in a little bit, and a small portion of the driveway cuts across the floodplain, but no building footprint would be in the floodplain.
How much survey have you done out there?
We've had the property fully surveyed.
They did a topography survey?
No, I'm sorry. No, the GIS topo is just what comes from the LiDAR GIS topo, which we spot checked and found that it was fairly accurate for a lot of this size. With only doing 4 homes, it didn't seem practical, where the GIS LiDAR survey was already quite accurate.
Well, and I'm certainly not telling you how to do your business, but when you're doing a 4,000 square foot home that close to a floodplain, you might want to check. LiDAR is not that accurate. And I'm sure Hoover could tell you all about what happens when we get heavy rain.
Of course, and we did have the actual BFE, the 439.1 BFE staked, and we've seen that. You can use a builder's level to see exactly where that 439.1 traces. We've, of course, traced that down through the area. So, again, that was one of the key numbers that we did visually trace.
All right. Are there any other questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lauer.
So there was a lot of discussion about the size and quality of the homes that you're planning on building. While we haven't considered them here, are you planning on having any restrictive covenants assigned to the plat?
With a four-lot subdivision, at some point, and we have talked to a lawyer about this, we've not ruled out if that were something that the commission would think would be necessary, we would consider it. But with having four homes, in some ways, having covenants for the four homes, as my lawyer said, it almost gives them something to go back and fight about. With it being so few, we have not. Being the builder, and if we needed to put this on the map, we could commit to like a 3,000 square foot minimum, if that were necessary. I mean, when we're going to this effort, we want to build large homes and nice homes, but we have not done the restriction covenant since we will likely be the builder. We know what we're going to build.
I understand. And the point was, you had mentioned that you would consider selling off a lot, and then once you do that, they could come back without a covenant and build a 800 square foot shack.
At the price we'd sell the lot, I think that'd be very unlikely.
I understand. You never know. All right, thanks. That's
All
all
right.
I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission or any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like a motion to approve case S210096 with an exception to the subdivision regulations to allow lots 1, 2, and 4 to be recorded without road frontage.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, can we please have a roll call?
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. Our next, y'all are more welcome to head on out if you want to. Do we have subdivision case 95 back?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And in fact, it's even simpler.
So we're going to bounce back to subdivision case S21-95. Ms. Sparks, the Blythes, and the Aldersons request for a 3-lot subdivision of 42 acres in the Trussville area.
All right, again, this is a 3-lot subdivision. All acreage tracts, A1 zoning, that splits over 2 roads, Mary Hicks and Cedar Mountain Road. If you all will recall, I believe this was approved last November, and when the plat is expired, and they're just asking for renewal. But again, everything conforms with zoning requirements for A1 zoning. Right-of-way dedication will be required for portions of Cedar Mountain Road adjacent to the property. And again, it will be serviced by septic tank.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We'll now open the public hearing and call for anyone here in opposition to this case. Please come forward. All right, seeing none, is the applicant here? That's right. All right. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like a motion for approval on case S210095.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, our next subdivision case on the agenda is S21-97, which we will hear with zoning case 21-42. So moving on to subdivision case S21-98, Rhonda and Jeffrey Parker's request for a 1-lot subdivision of 12.36 acres in the corner area. Mr. Morrison, if you would, please present the case.
Yes, sir. This case is to rectify an improper sale of property. It's all one meets and bounds tract, and this portion was subdivided from the parent tract itself. resulting in each and every individual who comes along to have to, again, subdivide it to a one-lot subdivision in order for us to be able to legally permit any sort of activity on the property. The lot itself is 12 acres, which far exceeds the 1 acre minimum allowed in A1 zoning. It has plenty of road frontage, and again, with that being said, staff has recommended approval. You will note, too, that on the plat itself, it shows that there is a ingress-egress easement that accesses the rear portion, which was part of that original tract, so it does provide frontage to that otherwise landlocked property.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We'll now open the public hearing and ask for anyone here in opposition to please come forward. All right. Seeing none, is the applicant here? All right. Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant or his representative, rather? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve case S210098.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, yeah, let's have it. All right, that concludes our standalone subdivision cases, so we'll now move to the rezoning cases on our agenda. For our rezoning cases, the staff will present the case, and then, unlike the subdivision cases, we'll actually ask for the applicant to come forward and add anything they would like to the staff's presentation. And then, after that, we will call for anyone in opposition to come forward. Each side is limited to 15 minutes on our zoning cases, so if you are the applicant and you want to reserve some time to address some of the concerns raised by the opposition, please bear that in mind and don't use your 15 minutes up on your, following up on staff's report. So bear in mind also that this body only makes recommendations on zoning cases. Final decisions made by the Jefferson County Commission. So, all right. Our first rezoning case is Z21-40. This is Ms. Butler's request for a change of zoning to C1 for compliance with the existing law office, about a half acre in the McCalla area. Mr. Brown, if you would please present the case for us.
Yes, sir. This is, as you already mentioned, a map amendment proposal from A1 agricultural to C1 commercial. The address is 4985 McAdory School Road in McCalla area, and the site consists of approximately 0.56 acres. I'll draw your attention to the aerial here. Adjacent to this site, and as was on the agenda for last month, I think it was the month before, was a clothing boutique, and that's the site adjacent to this site. The applicant is proposing to make the zoning consistent with the existing use, which is a law office. And so you have a commercial plaza here, which is C1. You have the clothing boutique here, which you approved the rezoning to C1 last month or the month before. And so this applicant is asking for C1 zoning for an existing law office. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Yes, Mr. Lowry, go ahead.
Mr. Brown, before we proceed, on the boutique, the adjoining property, did the county commission approve that rezoning?
They did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowry. We'll now open the public hearing, and if the applicant wishes to come forward at this time and add anything to the presentation, they may do so. Thank you, ma'am. Can you give us your name and address for the record, just so we've got it? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? Seeing none, are there any questions from the commission? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of zoning case Z210040.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Next zoning case, Z21-41, Calvary Worship Center, request for a change of zoning to A1 for a residential use. This is a 9.59 acre property in the Mount Olive area. Mr. Brown, if you would please present the case.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a map amendment proposed from Institutional 1 to A1 Agricultural. The address is 1931 Brookside Road. Site consists of 9.56 acres. Currently, what's already present is a church and as well as a residence. And there's a companion subdivision case to this case. which would subdivide this tract, this 9 acres, into into three lots. And the whole purpose of doing this, the rezoning as well as the subdivision case, is to allow a residence here at this location that I'm circling with the red pin light. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you,
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll now open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Okay. Mr. Gilbert, if you want to, you can come forward and add anything else if you like.
The only thing I'd like to add is, as I understand it, the owners are wanting to sell all the property.
Okay.
That's why the reason for the rezoning.
Okay. Gotcha. Mr. Gilbert, we probably got your address and old records, but give it to us again.
5160 Scenic Drive, Birmingham, 35210.
All right. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of zoning case Z 210041.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. We also have a concurrent subdivision case with this zoning case. Subdivision case number is S21-93. Mr. Brown, if you would please present that for us.
Yes, sir. Okay, so again, this is a 9.6 acre site at 1943 Brookside Road. And so the companion subdivision case shows you in this proposed subdivision plat that there are three lots proposed. If you can see that, this is lot 1, I believe, no, excuse me, this is lot 1 here, here's lot 2, and here's lot 3. The church, existing church, Mount Calvary Baptist Church, is located on lot 1. There's an existing residence located here on lot 2, and on lot 3 is where the single-family dwelling is proposed. And staff is recommending approval without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll now open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval on case S210093.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. All right, next zoning case is Z21-42. Paul Cadell's request for a change of zoning to RG for a garden home subdivision in the McCalla area. Mr. Brown, if you would please present the case.
Yes, sir. This is, as mentioned, a map amendment from R1 Single Family District to RG Single Family District, which is a garden district or garden home district, to allow 111 garden homes. The address is 6631 and 6675 Lou George Loop. The site consists of 32.71 acres. And there's a plot plan here on the screen which shows the arrangement of the streets and the lots as they're proposed. Staff is recommending approval without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there any, we'll now open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Okay, if you wish to, sir, you're more than welcome to come forward and add to staff's presentation now, or you can wait till later.
Thank you. I'm Tom Sims with Longleaf Engineering, 432 65th Street, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I just would like to mention that the lots that were sized for this development were purposely done so to be compatible with the adjacent subdivisions across the street. I think this is a pretty good view as far as lot size. These are probably a little larger than those across the street, but those are the nearest subdivisions to this particular parcel. So just wanted to point that out, as I think the zoning's pretty compatible.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? Yes, sir. Come on forward then and state your name and address and tell us your questions.
I'm Charles Kleckler. I live at 6735 Lou George Loop. And as you can see, they already got a subdivision over here on the right side, and they all going to come out the same place. Now, this road here is full of traffic all the time, speeders all the time. And this housing section over here, they're constantly in and out there. With all the homes he's planning on building up there, you're going to have traffic conditions that's out of ordinary. And I'm afraid there's gonna be a lot of accidents in that area.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where his property comes to mind or not, but I'm right beside his. By this map, I can't tell whether he's next to mine or not, but I live right next door, and we don't have police protection that we used to have. They never come out and patrol that area. So,
In the top right corner?
I live down this corner.
Okay.
There's two houses from between me and him in this area here, but I don't know if his property comes around next to mine or not. But that's a hilly area there, and he got to do a lot of grade work to get it down where he can build houses. And building that many houses up there in that area, that's going to be a lot of congestion in that area. Is he going to have sewer line there? There's a sewer goes through there, but I don't know if he'd be tied to sewer or where it's going to be. What do you call it?
Just out of a lift station, or you just want to.
Septic tank.
I see. Okay. Yes, sir. I imagine with the garden home lots, they're probably going to have to be on sewer. We'll ask the engineer that question.
But our concern is most of the traffic area and if it's going to be safe just to come out, both of them go out the same place. Because you're going to have traffic there all the time. Because you can't come by there without somebody going and coming out just over here.
Yes, sir.
They're constantly in and out there, so many of them, and they're still building.
Yes, sir.
So if he's going to build a home or something over there, you're going to have traffic everywhere.
Okay.
We're real concerned about it.
Thank you, Mr. Clucker.
Thank you.
Just to answer his question, the lots would be served by private septic tank.
By private septic, each lot will have its own private septic tank?
Yes, sir. That was the analysis of the.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll ask the applicant to follow up, make sure that's the case. Mr. Sims, if we've got some questions, and if you wouldn't mind coming forward. First question I've got is, what about sewage? Will you be a septic tank or on sewer?
No, sir. We will be on Jefferson County Sewer. It is actually already stubbed into our site on our side of the road.
Okay. So, have y'all done any traffic engineering analysis?
We have talked to staff about that. They had actually requested that, and we've got that in the works. Skipper Consulting is doing the traffic analysis, and you know what we had indicated to staff was that we would we would implement any conditions and recommendations they had in that traffic study. So we're fully prepared to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So follow up. Are there any anticipated modifications based on preliminary study work?
They're concentrating mainly on turn deceleration lanes.
It would possibly be a turn lane. The orientation is the preferred one at the intersection, right? That's the best practice.
Right.
So it would just be a question of what turn lanes would be required.
And just so we know, when you say orientation, how the access points line up, being directly across the street from each other. So, okay. But as far as, you don't have a report from Skipper yet, but they've said you may have a decel lane that we need to do.
That's correct. They're currently implementing traffic counts, that sort of thing. So
Okay.
it'll be a while before they have the study complete. There's already a center turn lane at the site, and so this would likely be a deceleration lane add if warranted.
I have a couple more questions.
All right, Mr. Lowry, you've got a few more questions? Go ahead.
I do. So, so looking at your plot plan, you've got only one ingress and egress. Did you talk about maybe having two at some point?
I think we would deferring basically to the recommendations for Skipper. I believe, like Ms. Carter was mentioning, it was pretty obvious to us that was the preferred location for the ingress egress. We wouldn't be opposed to a secondary entrance, but this seemed to be the most palatable pending that traffic report.
And are you thinking about a construction entrance, or are you going to use the same entrance for your construction?
It's my indication so far that they intend to construct the subdivision in a single phase. which would pretty much negate the need for a separate entrance. It would all be completed at once.
Okay. So could you tell us a little bit, I know you said it was going to be comparable to the subdivision across the street. What home size are you looking at with the garden homes?
I actually have the proposed builder with me today. I would defer to him on that.
Okay, well, before you defer to him, I'll wrap up my questions.
Yes,
and
sir.
We'll do that. So, and do you have any planned covenants for the subdivision?
Yes, sir, and he would be able to speak more thoroughly on what will be in those covenants, but we do plan to have an HOA with covenants and restrictions for the development.
And you'll follow those with the plat, most likely?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you going to have sidewalks in the subdivision?
I don't think we had planned on sidewalks in the subdivision.
I'm just asking. I'm not.
Yes, sir. I was just double checking to make sure I didn't show any, and I was misremembering. No, sir. I don't think we have any.
Okay.
plan.
All right. Well, thank you. That's all I had, except for I'd like to hear about the construction.
Yes, sir.
My name is Matthew Deason. I live at 1165 52nd Street South, Birmingham, Alabama. I work with Roush Coleman Homes, and yes, the subdivision homes built in it will be very similar to the ones across the street, averaging 1,500 square feet, probably on the smallest size, 1,200 up to 2,200 on the larger size. They'd probably have brick fronts, vinyl siding on the sides, and we would have our own covenants within the subdivision that would be very similar to what is across the street.
Okay.
Anything else?
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are there any other questions from the commission? All right, so as far as the traffic study is concerned, do we need to, are we satisfied that, let me ask this, do we need to make approval of any zoning subject to a suitable traffic study? Or is that a minute?
It's a requirement of development.
Okay, they'll have to do that anyway. Okay, all right, that's what I thought. All right. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of zoning case Z210042.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. We now have a concurrent subdivision case, S21-97, which is for the same property, the subdivision of 111 lots. Mr. Brown, if you would, please present the subdivision case for us.
Yes, sir. The plot plan for the zoning case is the same plot plan for the subdivision case. These are not conditions, but this is the analysis of the traffic staff review. One, the applicant must provide a traffic impact study, as you already indicated for the rezoning case. 2, additional right-of-way will be required to be at least 35 feet from the center of Lou George Loop pavement for existing conditions. And 3, the pavement radii for the cul-de-sacs must be reduced to 40 feet to meet subdivision standards. And to my knowledge, per my conversation with the applicant, these requirements have already been met with the recent submittal of their subdivision plat. For this reason, staff is recommending approval of the subdivision plat without the just read conditions.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll now open the public hearing on this case and ask if there's anyone here in opposition or if anybody has any questions. Mr. Kleckler, do you have any more questions about this case? Okay. All right. Are there anything that the applicant wishes to add or anything like that? All right. Seeing none, then we'll ask if there are any questions from the commission. Mr. Lauer?
So I have a couple of questions on the plot. So you've got, looks like 2 retention ponds shaded in blue. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And are they tied to any particular lot? How are you controlling those?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so maybe staff can help me on this. So are those lots going to be owned by the homeowners association?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. They would be HOA. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Okay.
HOA maintained.
All right, and I'm trying to figure out one thing. So at the very top right, there seems to be a little triangle right there. I'm not sure if it's in the plot or if it's separate. Looking at the drawing, is that part of your subdivision plan? Is it? Just the triangle just to the northeast of it.
Oh, in there? No, sir, that's outside of our property limits.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Those were my questions. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Lowry. Okay, we will, any other questions for anybody? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a motion for approval on case S210097.
Second.
Do we need to make the approval of this subdivision case contingent on the rezoning case? Staff, is that necessary?
I don't think the subdivision case will move forward without the rezoning, so I don't see the harm in doing so.
Okay.
It can't. The commission has to approve the zoning amendment. Should they not approve it, then the subdivision would not.
Okay, so approval of the subdivision by us would be subject to zoning approval by the county commission later on?
Correct.
Okay. Well, Marklin, would you be willing to?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend my previous motion. Make a motion to approve case S210097, pending approval of the concurrent zoning case Z210042.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, great. The ayes have it. All right. Our next case is zoning case 21-43. This is Lisa and Jimmy Land's request for a change of zoning to A1 to remove a split zoning for a residence. This is 21.42 acres in the Mud Creek area. Mr. Brown, if you would, please present the case.
Yes, sir. As already mentioned, this is 21.42 acres at 3820 Mud Creek Road. What you see on the screen is the plot plan for this development. It's one single-family dwelling, and the small box you see is the proposed area of the septic tank. Here's an aerial view of the site. Shows the property is currently vacant and undeveloped. Current zoning, R1 split zoning, R1 and agricultural 1. And the long-range land use plan identifies the area for rural uses. The agricultural zone district is consistent with the rural designation, and staff is recommending approval of this rezoning without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, we'll now open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? All right, if you wish to say anything, you're more welcome to come forward now. Otherwise, we'll call for anyone here in opposition. Okay, seeing none, are there any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of zoning case Z210043.
Go ahead, I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. All right. Next case is Z21-44, Service Road LLC's request for change of zoning to I-1 for an RV sales and service development. This is on a piece of property approximately 15.84 acres in the Trussville area. Mr. Brown, if you would please present the case.
Yes, sir. As mentioned, this is a 15.84 acre site at 6100 and 6042 Service Road in the Trussville area. The map amendment proposes from A1 and C1 to I1, which is not consistent with the county's long-range land use designation of agricultural. The Service Road, in addition, in terms of the long-range land use plan, identifies Service Road primarily as a residential corridor, a medium to high-density residential corridor, and for that reason, staff is recommending denial of this rezoning request.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll now open the public hearing and ask the applicant please to come forward and add anything they wish.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Meredith Calhoun. My address is 2625 Aberdeen Road. I represent the applicant. Mr. Brown, may I move back up to the plot plan?
Oh, sure.
Mr. Calhoun, I'm sorry, where is Aberdeen Road at?
Birmingham, Alabama, 35223.
Thank you. I'm just not familiar with that. Probably should be, but.
Okay, so this is a plot plan showing the intention of this redevelopment. But what I'd really love to be able to show you today is that, of course, this is commercial zoning and an agriculture zoning, and then to the north of the site, more commercial zoning exists along Misty Ridge Drive and beyond that. As a matter of fact, my dentist is just past this. So when we first looked at the site and put it under contract, we believed that the intention for land use was to have commercial businesses on Service Road. It's very close to I-59. So we were really thinking that we would be rezoning to a commercial use rather than industrial for this RV sales and service center. And staff has been super helpful in guiding us through this process. But because, I guess, of the heavy equipment, we're seeking the light industrial, although this will function very much as a commercial business with very low traffic. So I think that's all I wanted to say.
Sure, that's great. So you know, in our report, we do have maps showing that the existing land uses that surround the property and the current zonings as well. So we have that, and we talked about that during our pre-meeting.
Right.
And Mr. Brown, if you may pull that up, I think that would be helpful for everybody to.
Additionally, if we could just stay on that plot plan for one moment, we've
Sure.
actually already redrawn this. We've reduced it down to one drive because we really don't need two drives.
Okay.
We took a plan of an exact, the same developer, or rather the same company in Ackworth, Georgia, where they have a very similar one, which is the photo that Mr. Brown showed earlier. So we're down to one drive. We've also pushed the site forward. So we were able to achieve about 516 feet of buffer between the back property line and here.
Okay.
We are certainly touching residential property. There's a 90-plus homes, it looks like, behind the site, but we touched two lots of residential property.
Ms. Kelly, can you speak on exactly what type of use, kind of specifically? I know it says for RV sales and service. Can you tell us, what's the primary function of it? Are we just a dealership for RVs, or is it more of a service center? Is it a storage yard? Where do you keep them? Or that sort of stuff. If you can talk us through that, please.
Sure. The name of the business, or the name of it will be a dealership. It's called Open Road Complete RV.
Okay.
And so they'll be selling RVs. They'll also be servicing inside of a building RVs, and typically the service is interior, inside
Okay.
of the vehicle, not so much engines and those kinds of things at this particular location.
Do they sell new RVs or used or both?
They do both.
Both. Okay. All right. But the servicing of them and repairs of them will be done primarily inside.
Mm-hmm.
Inside
of a building, then also inside of the vehicles is where they have the majority of the repairs that they need done.
Is there any repair work that actually is done out like on the lot at all?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I would imagine that there may be some of that.
Okay.
Just because there may be some quick things that happen inside of the vehicle while
Okay.
they're parked in the lot.
What are the hours of operation for a store like this?
Great question. I recall we're 8 to 5
Okay.
Monday through Friday, and then a little bit later on Saturdays.
Okay. Are y'all open on Sundays also?
No.
Okay. All right. And this may be hard to put a number on this, but I mean, tell me how many customers do y'all typically, how many RVs are coming in and out of this facility on a daily basis?
So the RVs aren't what's really coming in and out on a
Okay.
daily basis. They reported about 24 cars a day in terms of, that's why we cut down to one driveway in terms of just folks coming to look at inventory.
Okay, so that would be customers and employees. You're talking about 25 cars a day coming in and out? Okay. All right, thank you. I think you got some questions. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to ask some questions that anybody here in opposition may ask. But Mr. Lowry, you've probably got some better
I
ones.
tag
than
on
me.
it, well, not better, just different. So,
No.
but great comment. So you hit the hours. So you've got a really big parking lot compared to the square footage of the building. Okay, so what kind of inventory are you going to fill up that parking lot with RVs for sale?
I think the intention is to have the ability to store some inventory, but to move that inventory. So I think they'd like to see it empty more than full.
Okay, and I imagine a lot of these are pretty high dollar RVs. So tell me about how you're going to secure your property. It's sort of a buffering question too. You mentioned you've moved the structure and the parking forward, so there's 500 feet of buffer between that and the residential areas to the rear. So
Yeah,
are you
so
going
the-
to do like a security fence with barbed wire and stuff like that, or?
So the intention is to do like a black plastic wrapped fence around the property. No need for barbed wire in that area or with this type of product. There will be a gate in front that is probably operable and locked when not in business. We would like to have a well landscaped buffer between the properties to maintain as much trees as possible. Our plot plan is not engineered at this point, so we will be subject to the topography and the site itself.
Right, thank you, Ms. Collins.
I
Go ahead, Mr. Lyle.
So also, two more things on my list. Lighting, are you going to keep like 24/7 lighting on the lot?
We will have to keep lighting most hours. The lighting is directional, so it will be down on the lot. And the lights that they use on the other developments get out about 12 feet around from the lots. So they'll use as few as possible just to keep that immediate area lit for security purposes.
Okay, and,
we'll also have cameras.
In addition to sales, are you thinking of including also storage, like people can bring theirs in and store it for off-season?
We do not have that service at this time. I cannot answer whether that would happen in the future.
All right, that's it for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lauer. All right, sorry, we kind of jumped right into questions, but we're still in the public hearing, so we'll ask for anybody that's here in opposition to please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us your concerns.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Come on up, Mr. Meads. What have you got for us?
How are you, Mr. Evans?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
I'm Jim Meads. I live at 6384 Ziklag Circle, Birmingham. That's in the Kidron subdivision, which is up above these two lots. I'm a professional engineer and vice chair of the Trussville Planning and Zoning Board. A couple of things to point out. I've lived in Trussville for many years, 25, 30 years. Service Road primarily serves residential development, as staff said, along this service road. And if you go, I guess, to the west, it connects with Chalkville Road. This lot, or where they would access, is over 3/4 of a mile from Chalkville Road. So there's a good stretch there. 2 mornings ago, in the morning, I come out of Kidron and I go down Service Road over to Chalkville Road every morning to get on the interchange. The traffic from the intersection of Chalkville Road and Service Road was backed up beyond this site in the morning. That happens some. This is kind of a lot of traffic coming through there, but a few other things. The intersection, the interchange is pretty congested. I've seen a lot of accidents at the Chalkville Road and Service Road intersection. It's a big, wide open intersection and really serves a good bit of traffic. I don't think it'd be good to add RVs to that, and I don't think that, I hate to see a bunch of RVs along Service Road, particularly 3/4 of a mile from the interchange.
Let me just ask you real quick about traffic. I mean, look,
Yes.
I know you know traffic. I mean, is there a concern about RVs on the road just in general, or the time that they'll be on there? When are you seeing cars stacking up on Service Road, and is that going to be? I don't know if you deliver new RVs to this facility in the middle of the day when there's less traffic, or if it's during peak hours or what. So if you have any information on that, you can speak on that.
Well, it is peak hour queues in the morning. It backs up, but this Service Road feeds over to the high school area, so you get traffic coming through in the afternoon when the school peaks. You also see it in the evening as well. Most of the traffic on Service Road is passenger cars. It's not RVs or trucks or that type of vehicles. But it does queue up from Chalkville Road every morning, and also in the evening. It's frequent, throughout the day. So I don't think having RVs and this type of land use is really appropriate for where this is. Let me point out too, this location is between the entrances of the Misty Ridge subdivision and the Kid Ron subdivision. So it's between two subdivisions, one of those that I live in. Service Road is classified as a local roadway. And again, it primarily serves that residential development along there. So I do not feel this is an appropriate land use. It does not fit with what's around it. And I don't think the use of RVs in this area is appropriate as well. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Meade.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question, please?
Yeah. Mr. Lowry has got a question for you,
Mr. Meade, sorry for the
Yes,
stop and go. I tend to rack slower. For instance, so if this was to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission for Trussville, how would you consider it?
I would vote no against it. I would be the one giving the motion not to do it.
And your basis would be what?
My basis would be it's not an appropriate land use. It does not match the surrounding land use. And I would have concerns about the addition of the RV traffic on Service Road. Again, it's over 3/4 mile from Chalkville Road. So there's nothing, it doesn't fit. Most of everything along Service Road is residential. Even even a number of just single-family homes that directly access Service Road. But again, it's between two subdivisions. So the biggest reason it's not an appropriate land use.
Okay.
Mr. Meade, I'm trying to put the facts out in front of everybody here too, but staff's got concerns about land use. Okay, I hear what they're saying, but there's also kind of a conflicting use that's out there now with this. There's old Rock Quarry Road and this property that's in Trussville. It's right here on the northeastern edge of it. What is that? What's going on there?
There's a use up above there that's like a landscaping business.
Okay.
And they actually have a couple of houses up there on that site.
Right.
I don't know if they're connected together, but they have some of their landscaping type materials up there. But and then there's an old business right there along Service Road. There's a few businesses in there, and then to the west, there's some like preferred commercial type, professional, like a dentist and that sort of thing. That's in the front of Misty Ridge. I think preferred commercial, something like that, would be appropriate. Some of your lower density commercial, professional commercial like that. But as you get further down Service Road, it's all residential.
Yeah. Well, in the pre-meeting, I had the question about it, and what I'm talking about is this property that's in Trussville that's just to the north of this Burgundy area here. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brown. That area, I understand that's zoned industrial under Trussville's zoning regulations. It's not zoned industrial?
No, it's our understanding that it's zoned A1, but it appears that the use of the property is something that would be zoned industrial in the county.
Well,
I believe it is like stone cutting and work on the property.
I'm not sure about that. It's a landscape.
Okay.
I believe the businesses are quality creative landscaping
That's
and
it.
concrete cutting.
In concrete.
But
Okay.
I don't believe it's on site. I think they use it as a office space.
I think there appears to be some storage on the
It's not retail. They're going out and doing landscaping, they're storing their material there. It's not, from what I can tell, people going in there and buying.
Gotcha.
Those things.
And I'm sorry, because maybe we were talking use and not zoning earlier or something, but I picked up from the pre-meeting that it was zoned industrial, and so I'm thinking, well, yeah, we've got a land use plan that says it's not compatible, but then we've got an existing use that right there too, but I think I'm
They're not
straight now.
manufacturing or selling anything.
Okay.
They're mainly storing.
Okay. Okay.
Their materials there.
All right.
There are some, I'd call it legacy businesses that either may be operating outside the land use plan, but within the existing zoning.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Meades. Is there, yes, sir, are you here in opposition as well?
It's only one.
Could state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Ron Cobb. My address is 6442 Misty Ridge Drive. I'm the president of the Misty Ridge Residential Association. I'm accompanied by Fred Ernstberger, the treasurer of our organization. We're opposed to the proposed rezoning from A1 and C1 to I1. We represent the 96 homes in the Misty Ridge neighborhood, which are residences of primarily senior citizens. We selected Misty Ridge for its proximity to shopping, dining, doctors' offices, hospitals, and churches. The proposed development of these parcels for the sales and service of facility will negatively impact our quality of life, including tall, bright lighting to illuminate the facility at night, which will be visible from our yards and bedrooms. The plan we saw indicated the building and surrounding parking would be more than a football field wide and 2 football fields long. It's down from our neighborhood, so we would be looking down on Husky Stadium, if you're familiar, the city high school football stadium, being installed next door. Property values will drop, damaging the investment we have put into our home and our community. The amount of infrastructure needed on this parcel for this type of business, large volumes of concrete, warehouses, garages, showrooms, offices, and unsightly tall chain link fence will limit the appeal of use of the site in the future, perpetuating businesses such as car lots, self-storage, or other businesses with fleets of commercial vehicles, which are all undesirable. 2 or 3 years ago, one of the garbage trucks that serviced our neighborhood leaked hydraulic fluid while on Misty Ridge Drive. Government agencies mobilized to prevent the fluid from getting into the drain system. The cause of the concern was that our drain system connects directly to the Cahaba River. If there was so much concern over a small leak, what is going to happen when an industrial-sized leak occurs at this business? This is an eventuality that we would prefer not to realize. As bad as we think this will be, we are also concerned that not enough forethought has been given to just how much money will be required to prepare the site for construction. Other entities, including a church, have already determined that the site prep cost would be exorbitant and went elsewhere. We are really concerned that after you open the I-1 Pandora's box, this buyer will realize the site is unsuitable and something worse will be built. We are worried that this plan will turn our Bedford Falls into Potterville. We are concerned about the subsequent increase of traffic on Service Road, which is our only entrance and exit from Misty Ridge. Service Road is frequently used by vehicles to circumvent I-59, particularly when there are accident-causing delays southbound. These drivers are unfamiliar with the narrowness and curviness of the road and the neighborhoods located along the length of the road. They often appear to be in a hurry to beat the traffic and rush to their destinations. Adding to this business at this location along Service Road will exacerbate the volume of traffic and blocking of neighborhood entrances, which can be substantial. The varied size and length of recreational vehicles, trailers, and commercial supply vehicles, coupled with varied experiences of those driving them, is also concerning. Entering and exiting at the proposed sales and service location will cause accidents from vehicles cresting the hill. This hill heading north is a blind approach with little time to brake and avoid collision. The momentum of these vehicles and wide radius needed when turning right onto Service Road and cresting the hill heading south on Service Road will be dangerous. We are concerned for the safety of parents taking their children to the elementary school and middle school, and of the teenage drivers driving to the high school, which are all near the north end of Service Road. We're also concerned about the employees commuting to work and we old folks traveling to our early morning doctor's appointments. An accident may result in a T-bone collision which could severely injure one of our neighbors. The narrowness of the service road at the proposed location will require knowledge and confidence of how to manage the elevated road. Cutting off the corner will result in the vehicle or trailer being struck or shutting down service road until a large tow truck could lift or pull the RV or trailer out. The resulting snaggletooth and an impossible turnaround will be a nightmare for vehicles approaching and unable to see the situation. This location is not ideal or appropriate for an RV sales and service business, and we ask the Commission to deny this request. We ask the applicants to reconsider the concerns expressed by the Misty Ridge neighborhood, and we appreciate this opportunity to comment and state our opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this case? All right, if you could be very brief. We're really stretched on our time. So.
J.R. Malkus, City of Trussville, Superintendent of the Building Department, and we just are not in favor of the rezoning.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. That's not, cities usually don't come and speak. They'll just send a note or something. So
I can't say much more. So.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, are there any questions or discussion from the Commission?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Can we have the applicant to come back up for a second? I just want to ask
Sure.
a question.
Yeah, Ms. Calhoun, if you would.
Yes, a general question. Typically, with this particular project that you're looking to put there, how many RVs you think would be there typically? I know you can't give a concrete answer, but throughout the day, just on a regular basis, in and out of the facility.
Yeah, and just looking at their Ackworth location, there's anywhere from 10 to 12 scattered about the site, a fairly large site. That's the answer to your question. I think to address the concern about the size of the site, it could be engineered to be smaller, perhaps. We certainly want to work with county, city, neighborhood to put an appropriate sized development there.
And also, my second question is, if this particular project doesn't go to fruition, will you look at doing another particular project?
Will we continue to look in the Trussville area?
At the same location?
No.
You have any other questions, Mr. King?
No, that was all I had.
Yes, Mr. Roy.
So will there be like a car dealership, they have test drive? Did you have test drives for those RVs? If so, with the volume that you have, how much test drive would it take per day?
I would say that there would be very little to no test driving. And again, we'll be happy to entertain or be subject to any conditions that you guys feel would be necessary or relevant to maintain safety, but also to keep traffic low. It is our belief that this is an incredibly low impact on the traffic, little to no impact on traffic.
Does that answer your question, Mr. DeBroy? Okay. I've got an issue, I guess, or question for staff. What sticks out to me here is that this doesn't comply with our long-range land use plan. And so I almost wonder if we even get off the starting block here, because in times past, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't even consider a rezoning case if it conflicts with the long use or the land use plan unless the land use plan is amended, right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And so we have required applicants, I mean, we did it at Dollar General not too long ago, to go and to get a land use plan first before coming back to get a rezoning. Because, you know, Ms. Callahan, me talking, and this, I don't speak for everybody, this is just me personally, but, you know, I going to commercial right there by 459, is that a bad use? You know, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But you've got to go to the industrial classification to be able to have the outside repairs and the outside storage and all that. That's what I understand. That's what triggers going to industrial. But even if you wanted to just go to commercial, because the land use plan calls for this area to be rural agricultural, even a commercial would conflict with it. Well, but commercial allows some, agricultural allows some commercial uses.
Well, again, exactly. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's get us some.
There's a lot of commercial.
Right.
Even off of the site that is being shown on the map.
Okay.
More commercial.
That's right. It's commercial and agricultural split zoning, but the land use plan.
I think one of the other things to consider, and I'm not sure who the consultants were that did the long-range plan along Service Road, but I'm sure what they recognized when they went out there and they did a site visit were the two subdivisions, right? So those were existing Service Road, and I totally missed this in my staff review. It's a local residential collector road, you know, and roads, they vary. Road classifications vary, everything from interstates and highways down to, collector roads and local roads. Well, this road in particular is a residential collector road because it takes residential traffic out to your major and or minor arterial roads. Trussville Mountain Road would be a major arterial. You know, so the road isn't really supported. It doesn't support industrial uses. You know, commercial uses, maybe. I think that's why your long-range land use plan or whoever developed it said, they looked at these residential uses who were existing or that were proposed if it was done, after, if the development came after the long-range land use plan, but they knew the residential development was coming. They said, okay, this is more suitable for as a residential road as opposed to an industrial one. When you look at the county's zoning classification for I-1 light industrial, there's a reason, and I said in our staff review, that you don't find residential in the I-1 district. It's just simply not compatible. In this case, you have a proposed industrial use that is adjacent, essentially, to a residential subdivision. It's not compatible. This is just my staff review. Staff weighed in on it, and we were a little bit all over the place. But at the end of the day, our recommendation is denial.
Yeah. Okay, and I recognize that there's commercial frontage there, but I also see there's an A1 zoning also that we're asking to go not only to commercial on it, but we're also going to to industrial. But then I've got a land use plan that says, no, this is supposed to be agricultural, and so I'm taking one parcel of land out of what the land use plan wants it to be, and I'm putting it into industrial, and that's where, can I even...
Brief history.
Yeah.
Brief history. The zoning on this property probably predates the land use plan, which was done in the late 1990s. Now,
okay.
Typically what jurisdictions will do upon amendments or upon adoption of a land use plan is to immediately go forth and rezone property to be in accordance with the land use plan.
Right.
Jefferson County didn't do that. We got instances like this. There's instances along Pinson Valley Parkway where you've got this 300-foot of commercial frontage that's been there since the 1950s. But the land use plan calls for agriculture or residential use. Again, because the county never proactively or took a proactive stance on rezoning following the adoption of that land use plan in the 1990s. Mm-hmm. So here what you do is you have a conflict of what one's personal property rights are versus what the land use plan says that we never did align.
But in the past, have we not just, as a matter of course, always required an amendment to the land use plan before we considered a rezoning request in defiance of it?
There are provisions in the land use plan which allow you to consider compatibility with the adjacent or surrounding municipality.
Okay.
Or then two, where you make certain, or you condition it enough so that it's not too far deviating from what would be allowed in the commercial. I mean, again, I stated this in the staffing. I can permit a Holiday Inn on that property tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Without any sort of public hearing or anything else. A car lot can go there tomorrow without any sort of public hearing or anything else. So again, that's something to keep in mind because this property, as well as the property adjacent to the south, which has frontage on Misty Ridge, also has commercial zoning, which again guarantees those property owners a certain amount of rights to develop commercially that again are outside of any sort of public hearing or purview of this board or the county commission without that property being rezoned.
But to your point, I think if the applicant had come forward with the land use amendment first and a concurrent rezoning, I don't think you would see that the staff recommendation would be different. Because again, the use in the zone district is just not appropriate.
I along those lines, so let's say we did do a land use plan amendment, we still would apply that the adjoining municipality Trussville's land use wouldn't allow it, and that would be the binding requirement.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, even if they annex in the Trussville, they'd have the same issue.
So it's sort of like our land use plan change would be mute.
Because again, had Trussville not annexed the property to the rear of it, which is the developed subdivision, we wouldn't be able to allow it because most of that is zoned for, or is planned for agricultural use.
Okay. All right, well, I want to make sure we stay with our process and that we get all the pertinent facts in front of us, so appreciate everybody's patience with me. All right, are there any other questions from the commission? All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing and I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, after a lot of consideration on this and a lot of questions and comments and discussion, I make a motion to recommend denial, and denial based on the fact that this proposed rezoning does not meet both the county's land use plan and the adjoining municipality Trussville that has residential properties adjoining the property in question.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, and that is a motion for denial. So there'll be, case will move on to the county commission for their consideration, but that's the vote of the commission. All right. Our next case is Z21-45, Robert Miller and Carl Cagle's request for a change of zoning to A1 so they can put a pole barn up to store RVs. Mr. Brown, if you would, please present the case.
Yes, sir. This is a map amendment from I3 to A1. The site consists of 126.13 acres in the general area of Taylor's Ferry. Staff is recommending approval. The site is contiguous to an A1 zone district, which does not make this a spot zoning case. And so for that reason, staff is recommending approval without conditions, and there was no opposition to this case from the surrounding neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll now open the public hearing and ask if the applicant wishes to come forward and add anything to the presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carl Cagle, and I live at 2159 Little Cove Way, Quinton, Alabama. And we're just going to use this for family, camping. It's not a full-time use, and just for hunting. That's all we, trying to get done.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. Is there anybody else here who wishes to speak on this matter? Mr. Bro, go ahead.
So this is just strictly for family. Bringing it out,
I can't hardly.
The reason I asked the question, trying to make sure this is not gonna turn into a little mini RV park.
No.
That's not a concern, though.
And just, Mr. Miller, and I have a camper, and we'll have it, you know, on the side. And it won't be there all the time, we'll take it, you know, other places.
Private use, that's not a problem.
That's all we're trying to do, is just have something for a family.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bro. Are there any other questions from the commission? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of zoning case Z 210045.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, we got two more items under other business. First is discussion of revisions to the subdivision regulations and nominating the regulations committee.
Right, again, we don't really have a draft to present to you yet, of proposed revision to the subdivision regulations, we're working on that for some time. We've got to iron out a few things with the county engineer as far as standards go. Just briefly, we're looking to basically separate the construction and the subdivision regulations so that plan commission just has the, how we do the public hearing, what's going to be required for your plat submission, submittals, that sort of thing. As far as your, you know, what does your road base need to be made out of? We're going to yield that to a separate set of construction regulations that's going to be adopted by the county commission. So again, we're trying to separate that out and trying to iron out how exactly our public hearing is going to go and establish all the standards for what it is that we want for the plats. In order to get this done and get this done best, we feel like it's best for a regulations committee to convene at the planning and zoning commission so that we can meet together a few times just to kind of go over some revisions, ask questions, this sort of thing, and iron everything out with what we need to do in concert with the county engineer. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I would point out that we're going to have some members that are going to be leaving the board at the end of this month. We're hopefully going to have some others by the beginning of next year. So it may be, I'm putting this bug in your head right now, but again, I don't know if that's something that we want to do now, is to establish a committee, or wait until the January meeting, will be after the holidays, then we'll have a good, better grasp on who our membership is going to be, what sort of background they have, so on and so forth. But again, just at the behest of the county manager, we wanted to bring this to you today, just to let you know that we're working on that, and we look forward to working with the committee of this board in order to get that done sometime within hopefully the first quarter of 2022.
Okay.
I propose maybe we get interest today and then we add to the group once you have new members.
And we could all begin this with like an email conversation, because I know there are several members that aren't here today. You know, we've been trying to keep our attendance at the meeting just so we can at least have a quorum, just to cut down on people in the room, that sort of thing, due to the pandemic. So I mean, this may be a discussion or question that we may want to pose via email to all the members, which, you know, we'll be glad to orchestrate that. And then we could bring a set of names for next commission, or next plan commission meeting, and then we can decide on and establish the membership of that committee so that we can have it on the record with our members.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
I think that's the best thing to do.
All right, so that's what you want me to shoot out an email to everybody and say, hey, who's interested?
Sure.
And we'll bring that information back by next week.
Yes.
And hopefully, like I said, we'll have a little bit more firmer grasp on how the regulations are going to work themselves.
Oh, okay.
Second item that we've got under other business is, with this being the last meeting of the calendar year, you have election of officers.
Before we do that, could we handle sort of a side bit? You mentioned that there are people leaving. I know this is Trudy's last meeting. Who else is not going to be with?
That may be it for this board, I believe.
Okay.
We should have, there are two vacants, there's actually 3 vacant spots on the board, one of which hasn't been filled in years, and that's a person that's designated as an employee of the county.
Well, I'd like to just mention and recognize and appreciate Trudy for.
Absolutely.
So you've got at least 8 years or more on the commission, which I mean that's a mini career besides itself. So thanks Trudy for all your good contributions.
I'm gonna miss it.
Well, I think I have a plan to keep her near and dear, at least to me.
I like that. I like the plan.
Yeah, and so again, that just leaves us open to the election of officers for 2020.
I'd like to nominate Martin Evans for chairman.
I'd like to nominate Ken Lowry for vice chairman.
And I'll nominate Mark Llewellyn Ziegler for secretary.
I know, you should have said just leave the board.
And I would propose that the three motions we have on the floor be by acclamation.
All right. We're gonna call it. All in favor?
Do I chair this portion of it? I guess I do. Yeah. All right. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. The ayes have it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
Last
Thank
thing
you.
I will mention is that this will also be our director's last meeting with us. Derek has taken the job back in Florida.
Oh.
So she will be leaving at the end of the month, so I just wanted to recognize that as well.
Well, congratulations, Derek. Which part of Florida are you going
Back to the
Derek?
warmer air portion.
We're gonna make a.
Golly.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.